And to continue on in regards to these initiations, these organizations, these cults of personalities, the tiers, the hierarchies, the clubs, they convince people to join and to choose, pledging their allegiance to these organizations, these influencers, these groups, to aspire to, because they admire the people in them, as a form of protection for themselves. Because with the tiers, with the hierarchies, and we can name several of these specifically, that you have good people on the bottom that do not know better, because unfortunately they're ignorant of the situation. They're really in their trauma bonding, allowing the 7 deadly sins to perpetrate and influence them, because that's what they do. They feed off of the human needs, and that need to belong, to connect, to feel relevant, to contribute, to grow, sucks them in and makes them feel important, gives them what they don't know they have within them, because they seek it without. And when you go without, that's when you lose out, because you give your power away to the external rather than recognizing it all comes from the internal. But until you can really tune into it, own it, the internal will continue to rage, and it will attract where you're at, until you recognize how you're suppressing your own energy, suppressing your own power. That's the dis-ease, the discourse, the misalignment. So we have all of these organizations, societies, cultures, personalities, all of these glorious, look at me, I'm a royal bloodline. Oh, look at me, I'm of this group, or I'm of that group, or I'm that person. So they create their little clubs, so they can throw, and this is the Roman Empire all over again. We want to be like them. So if we follow them, if we join their groups, maybe somehow by, virtue of association, I'll get some of what they have. That's the envy. That's the desire to have something that somebody else has, rather than what is it that you truly want. How easily influenced, hook, line, and sinker. The hypnotic power of suggestion. You hear something long enough, repetition is the key to mastery. The more you hear it, the more it becomes a part of you. You start to believe it. It becomes part of your belief system. It deepens the grooves in your foundation of what you defend. Because belief systems are things that people go to war for, to defend themselves, to impose themselves. I'm right, you're wrong. If you don't comply, then I'm coming after you. It's all fighting. It's all bully tactics. And so they know, and they use psychology with the power of suggestion to make people want to be a part of their group, so they don't fight against them. If I belong to your group, then I feel like you're going to connect with me and support me, right? But that's what I was saying before. It's not for us. It's all against us. For the people, by the people. Governing bodies, we are the governing body. We've just outsourced our power because they Jedi mind tricked us and got us into believing. They cast a spell. They hypnotized us so well, utilizing their glory and the accolades. Look at me, I'm a shiny person. It's like the peacock. The male basically struts his stuff with his feathers out there, and and he tries to convince the female to come his way. This is no different than courting and dating, because again, those are some of those human needs, And so they get you. They attract you with the bright, shiny objects. I want some of that. I want what they have. It's not healthy, but when you're not healthy, when you're not healed, when you're not whole, You're going to see everything outside of yourself as either a threat or something you want. And then you will either choose to go along or fight or comply. And how does that serve you? That's not the neutrality. Again, this is the trap, choosing this or that. And again, people don't have the full story. They never question, why would these people try to get my allegiance? Why would this organization, this religion, perfect one, what are they going to do for me? Because it's, again, I was saying how people don't give unless they think they're going to get something in return. Because that's the cult that they started. It's convincing people it's for or against. You have to be a part of this side or that side. It's us versus them. That everything comes at a price. This old toxic patriarchy of take it if you want it, fight for it if it's, you only fight for things you want, and nothing comes without hard work. Like, really, everything that requires force is what was enforced. They have indoctrinated using the force method, but they do it in a fluffy way, or actually they do it in a couple ways, because they do use people as an example to show you what will happen, and that's all staged. If you step out of line, this is what could happen to you. But those are all actors on the stage too. A lot of times what they're showing you is just a show. We don't even know if those people were really, punished or not. And then you do have the ones that are punished. It's really whack. But again, there are these clubs, and they get you to want to become a part of it so that you become part of their barrier. That's how you build an army. That's how you build a fortress. You create tiers and hierarchy. You convince people that you are their keeper. You will take care of them. You will watch over them. And then you use them. And you pit them against each other. And you keep them in distrust of one another, never realizing that the one that you shouldn't trust is the one talking and pointing the finger. Why listen to someone at the top who doesn't live at the bottom? Why do people still fall for that old hook, line, and sinker, that divide and conquer tactic? It's the oldest trick in the book. You got someone at the top of the pyramid, pawns. We're all pawns in the Ponzi scheme. And it's a stinky pawn down here. But you got somebody at the top who's telling you about yourself and everybody around you, and it's not even true because they don't live amongst you. It's freaking unbelievable that people fall for it. But that's essentially what is happening. There's one person, there's a group of people up at the top, and they're trying to tell you about your life. They're trying to tell you about your neighbor's life. They're trying to convince you of something they have no clue. They're just telling you a story. That's influence. That's the power of suggestion. None of what they're saying is true. It's all just a story. And people go along with it. They go along with it to get along because they're in fear. There won't be enough for them that someone will take for them because they've been told from that top tier, once again, there's not enough to go around. So you have to prove yourself worthy of what is available and that everything's a limited resource. So now you have to compete with your neighbors. Don't trust those people. Those people are you and your people. And those people at the top, they're not even down at our level. So why did we put them on a pedestal? That's where the shit has to come down. And I was saying earlier about the pyramid. I heard something recently that said that maybe it's the pyramids that have kept us under the spell. What if it was? What if it, this ancient technology of the pyramids that everybody's been boasting about, like pyramids are so magical and mystical and such. What if really that's part of that technology that keeps us under the spell? I'm just postulating the idea of it. Anything is possible at this rate. But again, it really goes back to, you hear something enough times. Repetition is the key to mastery. And they love to inundate us, to overstimulate us with information. by just touching a piece of paper, you give it's like signing your life. You've entered in a contractual agreement and you didn't even realize it. They know because they have the information. They've withheld the information. They've hidden it. Some of it is in plain sight, but some of it is not. It's within you and your sovereign right. That's where the real information is within you. And it's about reclaiming it. You first have to reflect and you have to go within. All the shit outside of you is just showing you the shit show you've been living based on what you were conditioned. But when you deconstruct it and you decode yourself and learn about who the hell am I am not the slave to this system. I am not the piece of paper that my foot has a print on it. I am not all of these labels. When you finally come back to you, that's when you can actually affect the rest of the world around you. But until people really reclaim themselves and take personal accountability and be responsible, we will continue on this hamster wheel. Over and over again until we decide no more. I think we're right there. I do believe we are there. And it's my prayer that we all find each other on the same level and stop putting people up on pedestals. That's the truth. Yep, there are tiers and layers of hierarchy, keeping a buffer around the Ponzi scheme. Like this, you can't make this shit up. The languaging just blows my mind. I mean, I'm not even looking it up in a historical sense of I need proof to determine what it is that's been dropping in. This is just and this is where really the truth comes out, and people will always want to have something to back up what you say. But I'm over here going, you don't need physical proof when you tap into your power, when you turn inward. Because then you're no longer influenced from the external. You're just recognizing the patterns on the external that spark the awareness on the internal. And so, yes, they do interplay and they do influence one another. But again, the stream of collective consciousness, the collective collaboration, we're always feeding and receiving, conscious or unconscious. And that's why we have to learn to discern, to see, to hear, to sense, to really tap into the five senses. Because if you can't tap into your own sense, you're just going to fall for all the nonsense. You can't make any of this up. It's all in the languaging. And so you have these layers, these tiers, the hierarchy, the buffer of protection to protect those at the top of the pyramid. It's a Ponzi scheme. There's no coincidence that the pyramid is what they use to represent all of these sects, all of these cults, these organizations, these cults of personality. You can look at it from any angle you want. And the sacred geometry will tell you too, right? It's all energy, and it's always being revealed to us. The dollar bill has the eye, and it has the pyramid, and the irony of pyramids. There's more significance there. What if the pyramid really is what keeps us in this spell cast, this loop? What if? That one really blows my mind, because even in network marketing or MLM, whatever you want to call it, and their Ponzi scheme, their downward, it's all a pyramid. And those at the top are not at our level down below. And it doesn't make them higher than us just because of the hierarchy and the layers, the tiers that they have created. Tiers create tiers, right? Like this caste system, this class system, we didn't create this. This was a narrative, a story. Again, the power of suggestion from the top down. And when the top is this is what I always say about when I was in the military, in the government environment. We know that when the leadership is toxic, that shit trickles down. Shit doesn't roll uphill, it goes downhill. So when the shit is hitting the fan, it's getting flung around down below. When you're really in a toxic work environment, it's typically not the main environment. It's what is the leadership over it that is influencing the toxicity in the workplace. And people who are not feeling safe, secure, protected, supported, it's because the management, the whole structure itself is a house of cards ready to fall. And the more, basically, isn't it the caduceus, right? It eats its own tail. And this is the story, the history. This is the constant cycle that they get so out of control, and it's throughout all of history. People get a certain level of power because they didn't have power. They're trying to reclaim power, and some people aren't healthy enough to maintain a neutral power, because then they get the taste of that power and it infects them like a parasite. And that becomes, you start reliving, because you become what it is you hated the most, what you were most, you had the most animosity toward, you feared the most. The bully becomes the bully because it was bullied. And so where we're at in humanity, that is the crossroads. Are people going to fall into the trap of becoming that which they despise in order to play at that same energetic frequency and level, which is where wars come out? Because when you fight fire with fire, obviously we know it implodes, explodes, it becomes a consumption. It becomes the caduceus. You cannot fight a system that is designed to take you down. You have to actually dissolve it, or walk away from it, or find another way to resolve yourself. So that's where the shadow work comes in. That's where the inner work comes into, the healing the inner child, the becoming whole, learning the full story of it all, as opposed to taking just the pieces you like. You have to have informed consent for your life. That is discernment. Because what you take in for your life is what is represented on your external. And it is, again, it's a mirror. So all the things that people see out in the world, the drama, the trauma, all the world, and like going into this, martyr game or victimhood mindset, is really not looking within. What you see outside of yourself is what needs to be healed within yourself. So wholeness is about reclaiming those parts, because what you suppress will express until you address. And so therefore, where we're at in humanity is that crossroads of, are you going to fall for it again? Are you going to keep fighting against a system that's against you and actually is poking and provoking you to fight them? Because that's what they're doing. They're poking and provoking because they know that's how they harness your energy. Because when you become irrational and emotional and irrational, you become easy to control and to trip up. You have to have your head on your shoulders. You have to have your wits about you. You have to be present in your body. When you're emotional, you are no longer in your body. You have escaped out. You have been hijacked, the 𝐕𝐞𝐭𝐞𝐫, the mind virus. It has hijacked you and pulled you into the past. You can never go to the future. You can project and perceive based on the past, but that's how the ego works, is it takes everything you've experienced. And so when you actually experience trauma or a triggering, you're being reminded through a sensation, a representation of every experience where you were wronged or hurt or pain that's unresolved. It all comes up to the forefront. And that's what they're doing, is they're stoking that fire. They created so much of it by their influence through the programming, through the indoctrination of the system, of the nation. Like, we came from trauma. They need us for their drama, and they feed off of it. So the more we comply or deny, we act or react, that's when they keep on winning. And that is where we have to do better. Because when you know better, you do better. You can make better choices with informed consent. Because we're not given the full picture, the full story, it's up to us to find it, to narrow it down to what's within us. Like I said, you don't need proof outside of yourself to know what's within. But most people, because of this indoctrination, we've been taught to point fingers and not recognize that loaded gun of the three fingers back at us. That what's going on around us is us. That what we're triggered by is within being mirrored out. And of course, we'll always have tests where something will repeat itself just to test, hey, poke, provoke. Did you get the lesson? Are you going to continue with the same old behaviors and patterns? Are you going to fall back into your into your comfort zone? Because we don't grow in our comfort zone. And the old habits and routines are usually what trip us up. That's karma. Karma is when we keep repeating the same thing over and over again and getting the same results. We also call that insanity. And they want us in their insanity because that gives them the power to maintain the control. They have, under the illusion and delusion, maintained. They've had this form of power because we've given it to them. We've all collectively agreed upon a system that we didn't even realize. It's literally spell casting. I mean, I can say it over and over again, but when you wake up to the fact that there's only a few people and all they do is tell a story and then you just follow it, like you never questioned it, because for generations nobody's ever questioned the way the system was. And again, it's that groove is so deep in the patterning, in the DNA, in the generational legacy. Well, this is the way my parents did it and their parents did it, and it's always been that way. That old doctrine, the indoctrination of their doctrine, the acceptance of their lies. We rely on their lies. But in all essence, when it comes down to it, the house of cards will fall, because that's the caduceus always consuming itself. This is just humanity's opportunity to finally not play into that this or that division trap, the fragmentation that they have created through their doctrine. The idea that people don't remember who they are. They don't realize they're two halves of a whole and they're fragmented. And then when you become whole, you also reclaim your power. And when you know yourself so well, you're going to see your shit in other people and you're going to go, oh, wow, you know why I see that? Because I don't let it rule over me. I've been there. I've done that. I'm not perfect. And I can have compassion that person is trying to pull one over on me because I did it too. That's humbling. That is the most humbling thing a human can do, is acknowledge what they see in another is in them too. And not because they need to repent for sins, which is, again, the dogma of the religion. You're not here to prove yourself to another human. You're here to have an experience in this body as a human. That your soul is already perfect as it is. And everyone's just playing out their roles. It's just up to us to recognize the paper trail game and how we got hoodwinked into it. I think that when we get to the end of this show, this particular story in this round, we're all going to be laughing our asses off. Because this in essence is the divine comedy. That we allowed it to get to this point. And then we can always make a different choice. We don't have to comply or defy or fight or run. We can be neutral. And that's just so challenging for most people to understand, because they're so used to being in the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn stress response. They're coming out of their trauma. So much unhealed trauma is what drives people to react as opposed to discern. So this is a time of reckoning. This is the reclamation. This is the everybody wants to think that someone's going to come and save us. That is us. There's no savior other than us. Savior is savior. That's not a being. That's you. Save your. Or you could even say, save you are. It ultimately comes down to the Christ consciousness is the Christos within you. We don't need proof. We don't need to prove ourselves. And that's the biggest, that has been the biggest spell cast over us, is this idea that we have to prove ourselves. And because God made us in his image, we don't have to prove ourselves. But the unfortunate game that is being played is that man is trying to make God in his image as man, meaning they want to act like God. And until we come together as a collective collaboration, literally working with one another, they will continue to win and rule over us. Who wants that? I don't think I do. I that's not even a thing. To me, that's just since I was a child. Like, you're not the boss of me. You gotta have humor here. Like, it's so laughable to have to prove yourself with a piece of paper when you're a living, breathing human. Like, what? Hopefully this is the last part of this audio clip. So just some things to ponder and just some things to reflect upon. It is a lot. And it can feel overwhelming. But it's no more overstimulating with all the information that they're barraging you with out in the world stage. It's all about inundate you and overstimulate you to keep you in distraction and confusion. That's deliberate. That's intentional. That is their method of operation, their modus operandi. They only know chaos. Hence the term, the Latin term that's on the dollar bill, for example, order out of chaos. Their idea is that with all the chaos they create, they get to maintain their order over us. Never discount the languaging. Listen more intently, learn to discern, and recognize the duplicity within everything that is said. There's always at least two versions of the story. And in order to know the full story and to feel the wholeness of the situation, you have to get it all, and you have to reevaluate it. You have to reflect upon it. Don't let it take you out. Learn to pause. Learn to slow down. There is no rush here. There is no rush. But they want you to feel fear of missing out. They want you to be in the rush, because that means you're in the stress response. That's when they're controlling you. When you cannot slow down and you are on the go all the time, that's when you trip yourself up too. I know, because of my past. My past was a lot of escapism, busy. Like, I was a workaholic. The more you work, the less you live. But who are you truly working for? You have to sit and reflect upon that. And that's what really this is all about. Are you working to live? Are you living to work? Most people are living to work and don't even realize who they're working for and what they're working for. They've lost sight of their lives. We're here to live and experience. And it's an indentured servitude that we're in. All of it. I know that people don't want to really sit with it that deep because, cognitive dissonance, and this really rubs those wounds, like all the belief systems, because you've been so indoctrinated, everything has become a belief, and that they wouldn't do that to me. I'd love to think that too. But here we are. And so it's up to you to reclaim your power. And to be secure is to claim your securities and not allow them to feed off your insecurities. Love your feedback. What do you think?